It is a pleasure to welcome you today to this inaugural event sponsored by the Office of Inclusion, Diversity, and Equal Opportunity, honoring specific and general efforts to support people, ideas, and visions for equity in all its forms, whether through race, gender, ethnicity, sexual or gender identity, or religious or political beliefs. Today's event is meant to commemorate our progress and achievements and to honor one individual today, even though we still may not be where we'd aspire to be as a university and a community. Over the past several years, we've done a number of things. We now have social justice as part of one of our strategic plan, as one of the major goals of our strategic plan. We've created the Flora Stone Mather Center for Women, a 30-year effort. An LGBTQA task force. We created one of the first HBCU partnerships at Case Western Reserve with Fisk University. We've institutionalized programs from the Advanced National Science Foundation program to aid women in science and engineering. And we've revitalized the President's Advisory Committee on Minorities and the President's Advisory Committee on Women. Our university's first woman president has created a cabinet-level position to underscore our commitment to diversity. And I'm so pleased that Dr. Marilyn Mobley, who hosts our event today, has taken this position of Vice President for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equal Opportunity. Marilyn, we applaud you. I think this year's event is very special, not just because it is the first, but because it occurs during a year of an extraordinary achievement for our country, the election of Barack Obama as President of the United States and leader of the free world. 45 years ago, Martin Luther King shared his dream of equality with thousands gathered at the foot of the Lincoln Memorial. He urged all Americans to make real the promise of democracy. As a university, it's our privilege and our obligation today to work towards making democracy and equality a reality on our campus for our students who will influence generations to come. I'm pleased to welcome you here today, and I'm very pleased to congratulate our guest of honor, who I won't name because Dr. Mobley will name her. Not that you don't know. So next on our agenda, I believe, will be Dr. Mobley.
I'm so excited to see all the people who are in this room. You're here by design. I wanted you here to be part of this occasion, and so I'm so pleased that you said yes. We have been thinking about an occasion such as this from the moment I accepted the position. I knew there would be something of this ilk. I didn't know exactly when, I didn't know exactly how, but I'm glad that today is the day and that you are joining us for this moment. As Lynn just said, this was a cabinet level position. And in fact, if it were not a cabinet level position, if President Snyder and the search committee had not talked about it in that way, you probably would not see me here. There are different ways to do diversity, but I was so pleased as an alum of this university that Barbara Snyder had the foresight, that all of the people who work with her on the strategic plan knew that we wanted to signal that diversity is a core value at this university. And as an alum, I was so proud of that anyway. So even if I had not been selected, I knew the university was moving in the right direction. As Lynn has said, there's been good work here already. I see myself building on the good work. Those of you who are in the room because I believe you care about diversity, you care about this person we're honoring today. And as I think about it, she said she was a little nervous, and I'm gonna just say that about you. So I thought to myself, how exciting, she's nervous. She had me nervous for almost, I don't know how many months. I was on the, so when when I met with the search committee, I was the one on the hot seat. So this is just to help her feel a little warm today. We are here to help her feel warm. But I do think it's important as we think about this office and the work that we are doing, I first want to acknowledge the people who are in my office who are helping me do the work. They've worked very hard. And even though there are 2 people in my office who were already there, I want to acknowledge the newest member who just stepped out. Now, she knows she's better. Get back in here. And that is Robin Strong. Because this is Professional Staff Day, I think it is, I really want to recognize Robin Strong. So could you help me applaud her? She is our executive aide in the Office of Inclusion, Diversity, and Equal Opportunity, and people have said I've hit the ground running. Sometimes I don't know if I have or not. That's been my goal, but she has definitely hit the ground running, and we just so appreciate her. If you are enjoying this on Earth Day, you notice the green everywhere. She was thinking with us about how to both acknowledge that this is Professional Administrative Assistance Day and it's Earth Day. So Robin, we really do appreciate you. Shirley Mosley, who's standing next to her, is our Equal Employment Opportunity and Diversity Specialist, and Amanda Schaefer is our Interim Faculty Diversity Officer. So if you could please help me applaud them. For me, diversity is about nothing if it's not about education. It's also about experience, and it is also about excellence. And so I want you to recognize that in your program you had a green card, and that green card is so that you can write down in whatever way you choose how diversity matters, either to you, to our campus community, to our global community, to our nation. As Lynn just acknowledged, we have a new president, and this is not a post-racial society, although some people are saying that. There are issues related to all diversity issues that we need to continue to talk about, regardless of sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, religion, age, all of the kinds of diversity you can think about. I'm not going to tell you how it matters. I'm just going to ask you to respond on that card. And it was supposed to be table talk, but I was told that's the school marm in me going around being sure people are talking about what I wanted them to talk about. I have a lot of nerve. But in any event, I do hope that you will respond to the question on the table, and at the end we're going to have a moment where someone from your table can represent how your table has talked about it in whatever way that you want. In today's workplace and marketplace, we really do need to demonstrate the ways that we care about diversity. So I believe that in selecting me, and I mean to do the very best work that I can. I care about diversity. I'm passionate about it. My degree here in English was my gateway into some serious diversity work by getting permission to do a cross-cultural dissertation on Toni Morrison that looked at a 19th century white woman writer, Sarah Orne Jewett, a 20th century African-American woman writer, Toni Morrison, and being encouraged to do that, none other than by Dr. Gary Stoneham in the English department, who's sitting over there. I got support that I needed to do diversity work in all kinds of areas, literary studies, cultural studies, and in the academy. So I'm here because of that sound footing I got, even here at Case Western Reserve, and I've continued to do that work. Our website says Insight on Diversity, and the subtitle of that is Promoting Inclusive Thinking, Mindful Learning, and Transformative Dialogue. So at the end of our formal activities, we're going to engage in some of that dialogue. This occasion is one that we hope will repeat every year. Next year, we're hoping we will recognize 2 students, 2 faculty members, and 2 staff members, and then a 7th person will be the one who will also receive the award next year. So I just wanted you to know also that this is truly inaugural. We don't want to say we're going to have something as a new tradition and we don't do it. I'm a woman of my word, at least I try to be. Hold me to it. So I'm saying that to say that we hope to continue this tradition next year by recognizing other champions of diversity. I thank you all for being here, and now it is my pleasure to try to talk about the bio of this marvelous woman. Dr. Rhonda Williams is the person we have selected to receive the award this year. as I walked around campus and met people, I started hearing Rhonda's name all the time. It's not just that she had chaired the search. She was on one committee after another. She was on the PACM committee. And I don't know what I want to say in all the detail. You do have her bio there, but I just want to say what I learned in the little bit of time I was here, that she's respected, that people appreciate the work that she's done, that she's served on committees. She's been a faithful servant leader. She's a thought leader. She's very much called on to speak around the country. A couple times I was looking for her and she was somewhere else speaking. So this is a woman who's already celebrated in the Academy for her diversity work, for her work on social justice. She's already celebrated here for her service on committees. She's already celebrated as a faculty member, and she's known for her research and scholarship as well. So I couldn't think of a better person to acknowledge for this inaugural occasion. And I'm known for being long-winded. I told Chuck Rozak that my mother just moved and I found an old report card that said talks constantly. And I thought, I can't believe it. I couldn't believe it. So I don't want to share with you what you know already, but I do hope that you look at the bio, that you recognize that in our midst we have a true champion of diversity, a woman who has done it with fervor, who has done it with commitment, who has done it with an ethical fervor that I respect tremendously. I want you to hear this. This is a special note, someone who could not be here. And then, yes, we'll hear from the other note to Chris. Dear Rhonda, you work so hard to achieve in your work, or should I say in life. Your work is as much a part of you as everything else in your life. This is a great honor for you and shows that your good stress has paid off and will continue to. We are so very proud of you. We wish we could be there. Love you. Keep up the good work, Dad. Wow, Aunt Rhonda, Daryl, and Sherelle. Way to go, Sister Brother Man, Nate. Continue to enjoy, have fun, and above all, smile. Mom. Before she comes to the microphone, I'd like to ask our Chief of Staff, Chris Sheridan, to come and give us some remarks from President Snyder.
I wish you could have seen Barbara's face when she found out that she was going to be in D.C. when Rhonda was getting this award. She's a little woman to start with, and by the time her reaction was done, her chin was on the floor. She was so disappointed. She made a point of telling Rhonda in person how badly she felt. She is in D.C. with members of Congress trying to bring more money back to campus, which, you know, as excuses go.
I'm sure she's talking about social justice, so it's all good.
It's all good. There you go. So she asked me to share these thoughts with you. One of the privileges of becoming president of Case Western Reserve University has been the opportunity to come to know its wonderful people. Professor Rhonda Williams is one of those faculty members who makes me proud to be a part of this campus. Her passion and energy are matched only by her intelligence and eloquence. Dr. Williams not only believes deeply that the university can and must be a more diverse and welcoming institution, she has dedicated enormous time and effort toward realizing that goal, at times to the detriment of her own scholarship, as well as her sleep. Not for a month, or for a semester, or a year, but for more than a decade. In 2008, Professor Williams authored the original concept paper that led to the inclusion of social justice as one of the 4 primary academic alliances in our strategic plan, and she went on to become the director of the initiative. She was a persistent voice for including diversity as a core value in the plan, and went on to chair the search committee for the university's inaugural vice president for inclusion, diversity, and equal opportunity, which the search committee began to shorten to VPDO. I see Ali and Janice here, folks who are also on that committee, who can give firsthand testimony to the way that Rhonda ran that committee. But from President Snyder's perspective, Dr. Williams' commitment to the search was nothing short of awe-inspiring. She traveled to other universities to learn more about how their chief diversity officers operated. She personally recruited many of our top candidates, and she maintained a steadfast commitment to ensure that every member of the committee, and in turn the community, had an opportunity to be heard during the selection process. To give you an idea of her dynamism, the first day that our search consultants came and met with folks all during the day, after they met with Professor Williams, one of them turned to me and said, "Wow, she is going to be a university president someday." Case Western Reserve University is immensely blessed to have a scholar of such insight and integrity on its campus. Her commitment to education, research, and improving society is unquestionable, as is her impact. I join everyone in this room in congratulating her on this well-deserved honor and thanking her for her great service to our campus.
We indeed do count it a blessing to have you with us, and we wanted to acknowledge it with this plaque, which says the Inclusion and Diversity Achievement Award presented to Dr. Rhonda Williams for continued commitment to inclusion, diversity, social justice, scholarship, and leadership at Case Western Reserve University, April 22nd, 2009, Office of Inclusion, Diversity, and Equal Opportunity.
Oh, thank you. I always felt like my parents are with me whenever I travel. So it's the people who saw me tear up, that's probably an unusual thing for you to see me do, but it was very moving. The whole presentation so far has been moving. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you to President Snyder. Thank you to Chris. Thank you to Lynn. Thank you to everyone who's here in the room. I'm trying to figure out how to match this dynamism and convey this. So I actually have a script because before I get to my script, let me say, I don't want folks walking out as I'm in the middle of my presentation. I know people have things to do and busy people, busy lives. So let me actually get on with my script, starting from the beginning. Thank you for this honor. Thank you for this honor. I had to write that down. I need to also start by thanking not only the people I've already thanked, but by thanking those who struggle for justice in a more humane world. I need to thank my grandmother Nellie, who died in 1988, and my mother Jenny and my father Boone, who you actually heard from. Nellie's memory and my parents' wisdom have kept me grounded and on the march. I'd like to thank Mary Frances Berry, my PhD advisor and still my mentor and my friend. I'd like to thank my colleagues in the history department, many of whom have offered open ears and open minds and actual support. And I'd like to thank many of you here, too many to name, but thank you all who are here, and many of you who have been in the trenches with me doing the work that we do. Marilyn is actually making me work for my award, so I can't just get up and say thank you, thank you, thank you, and sit down. I tried to give my time back to her, but she would not hear it. She initially gave me the awesome task of formally speaking for 5 to 10 minutes, conveying to you a sense of my diversity work in any area that I'd like. And she has graciously provided me now with 10 to 15 minutes. I told her 5 minutes was just not going to happen. And I'll try to stick within the 10 to 15 minutes. I'll try to do that. So let me actually begin with my formal script here, and we'll actually see what happens. I actually want to begin with a quote. The famed 19th century Russian writer, Dostoevsky, who would eventually do 4 years of hard labor in Siberia for treason, for openly debating social reform issues and challenging government stances. He opens his first novel entitled Poor Folk, published in 1846, with this quote by Prince V.F. Odovsky, a prominent Russian philosopher, writer, and pedagogue. Here's the quote: "Ah, these storytellers, if only they would write anything useful, pleasant, soothing, but they will unearth all sorts of hidden things. I would prohibit their writing. Why it is beyond everything you read, and you can't help thinking, and then all sorts of foolishness comes into your head. I would really prohibit their writing. I would simply prohibit it altogether." And then Dostoevsky launches into his novel, a story about two people, a male clerk, Makara, and a seamstress, Varva, who are struggling with the trappings and circumstances of poverty. They are so poor they can't even afford to marry each other. I am a storyteller. In doing the work that I do in all realms of my life and my career, so far, I have tried my best to unearth all sorts of hidden things, as well as the not so hidden things that are not so soothing and not so pleasant in society. Stereotypes, racism, sexism, homophobia, poverty, oppression of all sorts, and people's struggles against those oppressions. I have tried to make these things visible, to call these things into question, to broker conversation in an attempt to promote understanding, to imagine a different world, both because it's necessary, it's critical, and it's right. I'm going to focus on my research and scholarship because for most of you, that is probably the part of me you know the least. Through my research and scholarship, I have sought to render visible and understandable some of the processes, the individuals, the institutions that maintain exclusion and exploitation, to amass the trappings of authority and power, to transform caricatures into real human beings, and to chronicle the many human struggles for survival, justice, and social change. Doing this as a scholar has not been easy. An example, let me give you an example. I'm going to share a story about my book, The Politics of Public Housing, Black Women's Struggles Against Urban Inequality. And some of my colleagues actually may know this story, but I don't know how broadly I shared this story with folks. When I was trying to actually secure a book contract, I had various conversations with different editors. One editor of an academic press told me that the press was not interested in securing the book, and this happens all the time, so it's like, that's not the big deal. But the press told me that they were not interested in securing the book because poor Black women would not sell. Neither they nor their lives and struggles were sexy. This is what the editor told me. No one would want to read it. This is what they told me. And while I was livid, truth be told, and even dismayed, I was actually not shocked. My sense was, too, that many people cared very little about poor Black women or their lives and struggles. It was that kind of thinking that had compelled me to actually write the book in the first place. And I have to admit that while I still get angry thinking about it, it is unfortunately still not all too surprising given the ways in which poor Black women are still depicted as loafers, alligators, and wolves, and as Cadillac driving cheaters by elected officials, politicians, and other folks in society, that this would continue to be the reigning, I would say, paradigm that structures the way that we treat certain people in society, and in particular, in this case, in relationship to the book project, in relationship to the struggles, poor Black women. In other words, even if the real lives and struggles of poor Black women might not sell, right, at least according to that editor, the actual caricatures, and this is, this is really critical for me, the actual caricatures of poor Black women do sell. And they sell really well all the time in this society to do work that gets translated into actual policy and affects actual people's lives. The Politics of Public Housing, actually, which should be available in the bookstore downstairs. We must keep the women's words alive. Exposes this. Exposes the creation and the making of loaded cultural conceptions, exposes the kind of gross historic and contemporary economic inequalities, exposes the process by which, and processes by which perceptions become reality, and these certain views of reality drive policy. But equally important, the many low-income, subsidy-reliant Black women in the politics of public housing, women like Goldie Baker called the name, Shirley Wise called the name, Rosetta Schofield called the name, and Frances Reeves expose the ways in which everyday people, every day, navigate horrid conditions and fight back, sometimes with success and sometimes not. What a lesson for all of us. I have several projects in process now that primarily follow two streams. The first stream focuses on social movements such as grassroots organizing, the war on poverty, and Black power activism. The second stream focuses on dope, heroin, more specifically, and therefore it deals with, like my first book, but in a different kind of way, marginalized citizens. It deals with predation and crime. It deals with poverty. It deals with the state, because the state is always a part of this dialogue. and injustice within society and the justice system. It's entitled right now, The Dope Wars, Street Level Hustling and the Culture of Drugs in Post-1940s Urban America. In the dope research, I am meeting numerous men and women, drug dealers and drug addicts and hustlers, people we often disparage, people we often don't care about, people who some of us think we already know without actually knowing their stories. Right now, I'm trying to meet people who lived during the 1950s, seancing and reading documents, and I'm trying to learn and tell and analyze their stories. I recently met in the archival documents a woman named Alma Stallworth. Alma Stallworth and her husband William, who were big eaters by 1955, 60 capsules of heroin a day each. William Stallworth first tried heroin as a U.S. Army man stationed in Japan in 1950. He thought he was smoking opium. Alma Stallworth began using heroin about 6 months after marrying William Stallworth. At the time, she worked in an aircraft factory. So, the ways in which knowing the histories and trying to find more out about the people really helps us to kind of complicate what we imagine are only these faces that have no history, that have no lives. We think we know people. We think we probably know each other in the room in ways that we really don't understand what is not above board, what is not revealed to you, what remains hidden, what remains obscure. There are all kinds of histories and pasts that all of us have that others don't know. So sometimes when we think about people and we think about issues, we ought to think about what it is we're assuming about people we're talking about, not knowing who it is we're talking to. I think it's really important. By August 1955, back to William and Alma, when Alma needed 60 caps a day, her arms were a crowded, pocked landscape of needle marks and puffed horribly because of heavy adulteration of heroin with quinine. Arrested in September 1955 and testifying in November 1955 before a congressional subcommittee on illicit trafficking in Cleveland, Ohio, the 29-year-old Alma Stallworth lamented her own drug use, saying, "This drug is a terrible thing. It takes your nature." So what are some of the questions guiding my research? And I think from these questions and from what I've said so far, you'll hear the link to diversity. You'll hear the link to challenging perceptions. You'll hear the link to raising the questions. You'll hear the pressure to think deeply about folks you know, folks you don't know, and about the questions that surround us on an everyday basis. Some of the questions guiding my research: why should we even care about Alma and William Stallworth and women and men like them? We walk around every day. We might pass folks who are homeless. We might be looking forward to The Soloists with Jamie Foxx, but we walk by those folks every day, and do we ever think about what are their stories? I'm a storyteller, right? How can we understand their lives, their relationships, and their tragic situations? And what does their absence from our narratives, from our thought processes about urban experiences or about Black people's lives, about Black freedom struggles, about human rights struggles, keep hidden? What does their absence keep hidden? How might such storytelling actually expose the myriad realities or spark a conversation about the social dynamics that make legible and complex the untoward, often appalling circumstances of Black people, poor people in post-World War II United States? Indeed, diversity work is about grappling with uninterrogated assumptions that thwart understanding, unveiling the mechanisms that maintain oppression and enacting change. At least that's what diversity work means for me. While I focus my comments today primarily on my research and just little hints of it, actually, the questions, the issues, the circumstances that produced the lives and circumstances of these historical actors also have an effect on people everywhere, including in the academy, where many of us witness the repercussions of stereotyping, where many of us witness the repercussions of exclusion, and where many of us experience and witness the repercussions of discrimination. These are factors that concretely impinge upon our relationships on campus and off campus that we must do battle with, necessarily so, as we engage in our diversity work. So let me say, by way of concluding, storytelling promoting dialogue, having critical conversations, whether through research, teaching, workshops, meetings, whatever form, is an essential step. It is only one step, but nevertheless, an indispensable one that requires pushing people outside of their comfort zones. Loretta, what do I say, Loretta? What do I tell my students to do, Loretta? Dig deeper. Loretta knows my favorite phrase to students is dig deeper. Many will resist, vociferously so and subtly so. But there will be those who also embrace the challenge, embrace that unsettled feeling, and move beyond the discomfort to think differently, creatively, and imagine anew. No doubt, this is hard work, and it requires that all of us make a decision about how and when to engage. So let me end as I began with a quote, this time from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, "I'm sorry you don't know me." It was a speech that he gave at a rally in support of Joan Baez and two others, one her mother, who received a 45-day sentence for a nonviolent protest at the Oakland Induction Center on January 14th, 1968. I am a historian. January 14th, 1968, to protest the Vietnam War. MLK said, "Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but he must do it because conscience tells him it is right. And there is where I stand today." Thank you.
I just want to say that there is a quote that I was thinking of as you were speaking, and it is a Toni Morrison quote that says, "Narrative is radical, creating us as it is given." And so that you were just sharing with us how radical narrative is to go ahead and tell the story. So we appreciate your story. And this dialogue is really just beginning. This is going to be an ongoing series. I see myself as facilitating the very kinds of dialogues that she's talking about. And so those questions are on your table. Now I would like for us to engage in just a bit of dialogue.
I wrote that a life devoid of diversity would be flaccid, monotheistic, and bland. It matters because without diversity, we would live an unfortunate existence.
One, just looking at our table, because our table in itself is diverse because of age, gender, the whole bit, and how we all look. But we also talked about the most important thing about diversity isn't what people look like and having the right mix of ethnicity and culture, but diversity of thought. Because you can have all the people look the same together, or all the people look different, they think the same way, you don't have any difference.
Diversity to us raises this question: mosaic or melting pot?
Ooh. Yeah, that's what we said. That's what we said.
Melting pot is a metaphor that no longer works for some of us. So some people like mosaic, some people still like melting pot. But some people stopped using melting pot because it started to sound like a metaphor that wasn't completely accurate.
I have two cards here. One is not mine, but it, I think, speaks to history teaches us that diversity matters. Diversity matters. History teaches, demonstrates that diversity matters. And this is my thought. I think that diversity matters because for us to move forward as a society, we must challenge ourselves every day to think beyond ourselves, to think about other people, for us to move together as a society, as a world, we need to do this every day and to challenge that to move forward.
These are coming out of inspiration from Rhonda's talk and Dr. Mobley's comments. And a lot of American historians like to say it's a tossed salad rather than a melting pot. So who wants to be the pepper? Okay, so we have a lot here. Diversity unearths truth in a culture where truth is allegedly inexplicable. Diversity is essential in any organization because without a wide variety of perspectives, experiences, and ideas, old stale practices are never challenged, no growth is possible, and creativity will wither and die. This one deserves a t-shirt. Certainty is the problem. Diversity questions certainty.
Very nice.
Diversity creates an environment for social justice work. Diversity fosters creativity, and diversity fights conformity, which is oppression by another name.
It seems to me that we had two types of responses, both pragmatic and philosophical. And on the pragmatic responses had to do with creating new opportunities and bringing new experiences, fresh understanding, growth in new directions in departments, in fields, in construction. And then the philosophical was, if we believe in the promise of democracy, that everybody should get an equal and fair chance, diversity is what allows us to get close to that unfulfilled promise.
Look at us.
Although we decided as a group to stand up, and also my thought was that although diversity is popularly used but loosely defined often, at base, I think the understanding comes from this quote that diversity may be the hardest thing for a society to live with, but the most dangerous thing for it to live without.
What we did was talk about what each of us brought to the table, which I think is a different way of talking about the question. But the green card task. Diversity matters because differences are to be celebrated, but first need to be understood. These differences are important because they allow us to grow through learning and creativity.